So buying a house in Puerto Rico just became a real possibility. And I have to explain this because I didn't realize like how beneficial to me, to my family, this was. Lex and I have been like trying to, looking at what it takes to buy a house, a property down on the island, Puerto Rico, and it turns out that this VA home loan thing is it works in Puerto Rico. Like it works, and Lex, because Lexi was like, are you sure that it works down there?" And I verified it. Like it literally says you can only purchase property in the United States, its territories, or possessions, including Puerto Rico, Guam, the Virgin Islands, the American Samoa, and the Northern Mariana Islands. I don't know where all those other places are, but so it works in Puerto Rico. So I had to verify. And this is coming from the VA.gov uh, Veterans Affairs page website. So it works. So look, let me show you where I'm at so that you can see. So you know I'm not just pulling a rabbit out of my ass. But so as you can see here, see the website va.benefits.gov. I move my finger so it can adjust, and then I'm in the frequently asked questions page. And like I said, Lexi was like, "Are you sure? Like we need to make 100% sure." So I had to go on here and verify, and I wanted to do it from the horse's mouth and not just like look it up on Google and stuff like that. Because I mean, I thought the same thing, that it only works. And the cool part is that it helps with zero down. Now then, depending on your credit and your situation, there are going to be some lenders that still like require for us to do that. But the potential for zero down, no PMI, which is I'm no I'm no housing or loan expert or anything. So PMI is like some type of insurance. I know the I stands for insurance, and like I said, I thought that it would only work on the mainland, here in the continental U.S. So I found out, like I said, it works in other places too. So that's great. Like that makes so much. That makes this a real possibility. But here's where it gets real, because there's things about the VA home loan that I didn't realize, that I'm learning about this now. And the first thing is that it's not a it's not a loan. You still have to obtain a loan. I still have to obtain a loan from a bank. And so what the VA home loan is, with Veterans Affairs is saying, the U.S. government essentially is saying that if I foreclose on this house, that they'll reimburse the lender part, or maybe all of the loan. I think it's only part of it though, so I'm still looking that up. But they'll reimburse at least part of the loan. The other things is that one is that you can't buy a fixer upper, which I kind of remember that in '04 when I bought my first house. My then wife was using a VA home loan, and we saw this beautiful fixer upper that we were so interested in, and but because it was a fixer upper, VA was like, nah, homie, that ain't it. So we couldn't get it. So it's got to be in good working condition, like electricity. The roof's got to be good, clean running water. Like it's got to be in good condition, good move-in ready condition. And the other thing is that you have to. This can't be an investment property. Like this has to be your main home, and you have to move in within 60 days of closing. So unless there's like, some circumstance or whatever, that legitimate reason you can't move in that quick. But within closing, we have to move in within 60 days generally. But there's some things specific to the island that we need to take into consideration too, because One is that not every mortgage lender on the mainland will give you a loan for Puerto Rico or any of its territories. Now I know specifically Puerto Rico, there's a popular bank on Puerto Rico called Banco Popular, which means popular bank. Um, it's like the most popular bank and biggest bank on the island. So from what I understand, that's something that they're familiar with. The other thing is that appraisers and stuff like that, being that you're on an island, may not be readily accessible. You might not find a VA approved appraiser on the island as quick. So that may delay closing. So that's something that you have to think about. And the other thing is that keep in mind again that Puerto Rico is in the Caribbean and it's an island. So you have natural issues to worry about, like windstorm damage and hurricanes and stuff like that. So that means that insurance is probably going to be a lot more, expensive and extensive, given that you're on the island. So those are some things that so far that we had to discuss, because I'm like, this is something that this can't be a rush project. Like, it's gonna take some time, and we need to make sure that we allot for that time, so that we don't caught with our pants we don't get caught with our pants down, like, oh shit, now what do we do? So and honestly, it took me 20 years to ask this question to even figure out if this applied to me. And now the same government that told me that I wouldn't amount to shit is handing me paperwork for me to go home. It's funny how that works, right? That 20 years took too long to ask thing. I think a lot of you are probably sitting somewhere in that as we speak. And not necessarily about a loan, but about whatever door you decided was already shut for you. If that's where you are, this is literally what I help people do now. So down in the description is a link to my calendar. Grab a slot if you want to talk this out. I'll be ready to listen. Where does that actually help us now? And the honest to God truth is that it doesn't. It doesn't really help, because not at the moment, because we're still trying to figure out to save up for a scouting trip, to get there, to go visit, to go walk around, and not to play on the beach. I'm not to say that we're not going to do that, but to get there and walk around the neighborhoods and see where it is that we want to go. Lexi has an idea. She'd like to move back to the city where she's familiar from, which is Caguas. So she'd like to go back there. But we don't know. We don't know. We still have to, like, again, have that trip, that week to 10-day trip to decide, look around and see where we want to be. And it doesn't help us get there tomorrow or next month, anything like that. So, but what it does do is know that when it's time to go, when it's time for us to go, or excuse me, when it's time for us to buy the house once we've been there for a while, because we're still not going to rent. We're still not going to get there and just like buy a house. We're going to rent for a little bit, see what it is, what the vibes are, and then decide, where we want to be long term. But when we do hit that point that we're like, okay, we're ready to buy a house, there's something we like, there's enough space, for the family, then this helps, if our money's good enough and our credit is good enough, then it helps to know that, we have a backing support to say, hey, if we screw up or something happens, the government will step in and reimburse the lender, which, gives us, a little, like I said, some support to know that, hey, we have like a co-signer, so to speak. All right, so that's where we're at. And if you've been following this story for a while, then you know how huge and important this is to us. So, but I'm curious, drop a comment. Let me know if there's ever been a door that you thought was closed that you wound up finding that there was an opportunity years later. I'd be very interested. And until then, I will catch you guys on the internet. Peace.